make sure this is this time's presentation.
Let's do our little. All right, here we go. We are back.
And we have last time's presentation loaded. This is not.
Uh-oh, that's
Okay.
not it?
No, that's not the one we're supposed to be doing this time. That was last time's presentation.
All right, well, we'll go ahead and let you load that up on that screen. And then once it gets back up, we will go ahead and get going.
Slides. My computer. Upload a file. This one. Okay, how are we?
Well, I'll start talking. I'm Edgar Luckie, naturally. Today we're going to do some financial things and talk about some financial concepts and some practical things that you can do to know about your finances. But one thing I want to start it out about is to know anything in life, including finances, you must think about and come to a conclusion about your lifestyle. What kind of lifestyle do you want to live? That is the biggest thing that will influence you, how you get your finances together. Most people let their job or their income dictate their lifestyle instead of letting their lifestyle be their goals, their ambitions, and their hopes. We would like to be able to give you some knowledge, repetitive knowledge on how to make the second choice, that you can achieve your goals and your hopes and make that your lifestyle, such as being able to travel or being able to make a certain amount of money or being able to live a certain lifestyle that you've always wanted to live, that you may have watched on television or either that you may have streamed Travel Channel or something to see places you want to go visit. Most people don't do that. They don't have goals. They don't want to, they let their income dictate, oh, I can only go on this type of vacation. Oh, I can only buy this type of clothes. I can only wear these type of shoes. I can only have one pair of them. Even at a young age, you can have a certain lifestyle. You like certain foods you like to eat, certain clothes you like to wear. So it's very important that you know what your lifestyle that you want to achieve, so you can budget and know exactly how much you have to achieve that. And it's very attainable. Most people start working when they're 18 years old, and right now retirement age is 70 years old. So you're going to be working from the time you're somewhere around 18 to 70. And if you put programs and things in place, you can accomplish that. That includes going to school. That includes all the prerequisite things such as scholarships, such as paying your own way, such as being able to afford to retire yourself at an earlier age if you don't want to work till you're 70. Like I retired when I was 54 years of age. So it all depends on what your lifestyle is. And I think Pam now has the right thing loaded. And like I said, the first thing we're going to talk about is goals and dreams. If you have any questions during this presentation, don't hesitate to type it out in the chat or email us, and we'll be leaving our contact information if you want us to further go on a personal level with you to talk about certain things. But Pam will be exploring with you about the employment aspect and about how money works, some of the ideas that you will not learn anywhere else but from her presentation, because this is not something that's passed down from parent to child or from school. We don't teach people about how the American capitalist system works, unfortunately. We know we have one, but we don't teach them the simple rules. It's passed on by word of mouth. And we're going to make you be able to, I don't care if you make a very low income all your life, or you make a high income, you will still be able to retire with a great lifestyle and still be able to afford onto your later years. So you won't have to be working at Walmart's, greeting on the door, or any place else. It'll be your choice if you choose to do that. That's what lifestyle is about. Being able to make choices that you choose to do freely and without being them made for you. I will introduce my lovely wife to you right now. Her name is Pam, and she will carry on the rest of the presentation for you guys.
I'm just going to add one thing to what he said. I'll add a whole bunch to what I'm going to say, but education is important, knowledge is important, but what we're covering today, applied knowledge is most important. It's not so much that you know the answer, but that you use what you know to be able to achieve what you want in your life. Yeah. So we have two different ways you can be employed these days. When I started work, all you had was an employee. Means you have a W-2 income. And in doing that, there's a W-4 form that you have to fill out. And it used to be real simple. It was like a third of the size of the paper. You can download one off of, just Google W-4 form, and you can download it so you can look at what it is that I'm covering if you want to go back and watch the replay on this. But it's actually 4 pages now. The form itself that you fill out is 1 page, but the worksheet and the supporting materials is an additional 3 pages. So when Coach asked me to cover the W-4 form, it's like, oh, that's easy. Oh, no, it's not so easy. And now I understand why he wants me to explain it. You have deductions that you can take. And I would strongly suggest before you fill out a W-4 form, you actually download it and read it. Page 2 is the instructions on how to complete the form. Page 3 talks about if you have multiple jobs. Now that is not so uncommon in today's era. You could be working for an employer part-time, you can work a full-time job. You can have multiple ways. And if people, we've probably got parents that are on or listening to this as well. If you've got a husband and a wife each earning a paycheck, and then one of them has a side job, that's multiple jobs within the household. So you need to look at all of that when you start completing a W-4 form, because it's how much, and what the W-4 form tells the employer is you've got your wages. You're either a salary or an hourly employee, and what you make in a pay period is considered your gross pay. Out of that gross pay, they will take taxes out. The W-4 form and your deductions determine how much taxes they take out before you bring home a paycheck. The paycheck you bring home is called your net pay. The challenge is, and I heard this when I was young, and I hear people now, oh, just claim 0. Then you don't ever have to worry about paying taxes. Well, the challenge with paying 0 is you have less money you're living on a monthly basis now, and you are giving the government an interest-free loan. The fact that you get a refund back when you file your taxes, if it's a small refund, that's a good thing. But if we're talking thousands of dollars, in a refund, you could be using that money in your home on a monthly basis and not living so badly paycheck to paycheck. So looking at your W-4 and the number of deductions that you mark on there, obviously if you're married or single, that's pretty cut and dry. But when you're filing your taxes, if you're married, do you file them together? Do you file them jointly? Do you file them separately? Those are all different ways you have to look at how you claim your deductions. If you're filing them separately, who gets the kids as a deduction? All of that stuff you need to look at with the W-4 form. And the W-4 form is filled out when you take a job, when you first start working. If you add kids to the family, that kind of thing, or get married, that needs to be updated with your employer. So that's the employee and what I call W-2 income. Now, we have a lot of people these days that are becoming independent contractors, so they get paid 1099, which essentially means you're not an employee, you're contracted to do a job or a set of jobs, and you get paid a contract amount. Nothing comes out of that. That's the good news. You get 100% of what they told you you were going to get paid. Common examples of that are Uber, Lyft, Grubhub, Instacart. We've seen all of those sprout up recently. I, in my business, am a contract employee. I get paid 1099. You then are responsible to pay both your income and your self-employment taxes. So it's important to be able to, and we'll talk about different ways to save, but important to set aside money for that. The beauty of being an independent contractor is you pay taxes after you take all your business related expenses out of that income. And what are business related expenses? Contact or consult the person that helps you prepare your taxes as to what's allowable with that. This is an example of the page one. This is the only form the only page that needs to be filled out. It's page one. And it's very simple, but you have to, if you have multiple jobs, you have dependents, and then there's other optional ones that you can have taken out, child support, alimony, those different things that could, or you owe the government money for past taxes. All of that comes out of the optional section there. You sign it and you turn it in. But as I mentioned, there's 3 other pages. The second page is instructions. The third page talks about how you handle multiple jobs in the different ways, if you have 2 jobs, if you have 3 jobs. And then the last page talks about the filing status and what your taxable amount would be based on your income. So that way you have the all the information in one place. You're able to figure out what it is you want for your deductions and how much you want them to take out of your earnings before you get paid. So I just went through all of that. A tax refund, again, is an overpayment. Depends on the question is which way is better to file. It all depends on the situation. I'm happy to talk to people individually as to what their situation is and how. My recommendation, again, I can't give tax advice, but I can help you understand which way works best in your situation. Unfortunately, most things with finances, other than the basic concepts, are something you want to discuss on an individual basis, not something that you want to put all your business out there in a group. So there's 3 different types of savings programs that you need. An emergency fund. This would be if, by its title, an emergency, but you want a minimum of $1,000 here because your car breaks down. It's not an emergency to need tires or an oil change, that kind of thing. That's routine maintenance you need to make sure you have set aside for. But an emergency would be you get in a car accident and you got to come up with a deductible. That's an emergency. Refrigerator, washing machine breaks. Emergency for a young person? You tell me, what would be an emergency for a young person? It's not date money.
No, not date money. But, if you would need money for, say, like for a certain activity that you may want to, that just came up, such as extracurricular activity, such as a tournament, all of a sudden, something you have got damaged, such as
your shoes blew out. You didn't realize that you know you'd bought them a month ago. Obviously, you need to return them and get your money back, but you need to buy another pair because you're in the middle of a tournament this weekend. Those kind of things. Now, short-term savings. You know, you got a tournament. I heard talk of a tournament in Vegas next year. Obviously, there's money that needs to be set aside for things like that. Emergency fund is things you need in the next 6 months. Short-term savings is a year to 5 years out. So you want to save for a car. You want to save for a vacation, a special trip you want to take, a tournament, next year's events. If you're planning for college and you know that we're going to talk about scholarships at the end, but if you know that part of the expenses are going to need to come out of your pocket, that's something you can save for on a short-term basis. Long-term savings are going to be more like retirement. If you have children, you want to save 529 plan for them for college. Those kind of things are considered long-term savings.
Purchase of a living housing.
Down payment on a house could be long-term or short-term or long-term, depending on how far out it is. Yeah. Short-term's in 2 to 5 years. Anything longer than that can be a down payment for a house. For those of you that are still in high school, that would be more of a long-term goal. So it pays to start investing early. And this is my passion for being able to share with the youth is if you were to take $1,000 and get a 9% return on your money, if your parents had put $1,000 away at the time you were born at age 67, you'd have $406,000. If they waited till you were 16, it would end up being $96,822. But if they waited till you were 40, you would have $11,256. So the earlier you start, and I'll show you why, but the earlier you start, the more it accumulates over time. And it has to do with the time value of money, and it has to do with the rate of return that you're getting. If you had just, and we're talking to the youth and the parent and the adults here, but if you were to start with just $20 a month, putting $20 away, in 10 years, you'd have $3,900. It's a matter of, one, the discipline of doing it, but then the power of, Albert Einstein discovered this, and he called it the 8th wonder of the world, the power of compound interest. So at $100 a month, using hypothetically 9%, over 40 years, you'd have $470,000 saved. So as Edgar mentioned earlier, you don't have to be making boatloads of money to be able to put money aside and end up being wealthy. So the rule is 72. This is what got me involved in this, and this is what's got me passionate about teaching others. It's a simple math rule. Money is math, math is science, and science is fact. The money will double at an interest rate. So you got, we're going to pretend 3 people got $10,000. Call them triplets here. And at 3%, if you take 3 and you divide it into the number 72, it approximates the number of years it takes for your money to double. So in 3 into 72 is 24 years. So in your 10,000 in 24 years becomes 20,000, and in 48 years is $40,000. Now that's in my opinion, an awful long time to wait for your money to double. Now it's 6%, but most of us don't know this. This stuff, and I have not heard anybody say they've learned this stuff in school. 6% divided into 72 is 12. So now you're doubling your money twice as often. So our assumption would be you end up with twice as much money. But the 10 becomes 20, becomes 40, becomes 80, and in the same 48 years, it's $160,000. Now at 12%, 12 divided into 72 is every 6 years. So our money's doubling twice as often again. The 10,000 now becomes $2.5 million. So it becomes an awful lot of money. And my question is, if this is possible, why are we not being taught this in school? Because the banks don't even give us 3% right now, but they are loaning out money on credit cards and the like and making this kind of money on your money. So the $10,000 contribution doubles 6 times more, 6 more times, 6 times the growth at 12% than it does at 3%. And there's Albert Einstein's quote that I mentioned earlier. So most people will ask, well, banks aren't given 3%. Where do I get this kind of money? And it depends on risk tolerance, but the global economy, also known as the stock market, produces well over 12%, and over time it has produced right at 12%. So then we have revolving debt versus fixed debt. And the reason I covered that, you sure can.
Just remember the rule of 72 will either work for you or against you. So you want it to work for you, not against you. And that's what Pam was mentioning earlier about credit cards and that type, and she'll go more into the different types of debt that you can incur. But that's how banks and financial institutions make a huge amount of money. People say, well, how can they make on such a little bit of money? How can they make such a great deal of money? Because they play for the long game and they try to get you to play for the short game, where you accept the $10,000 and you're happy, and they're playing for the long game, which is 20 years down the line or longer to make the big money. So it's just how patient you can be in trying to achieve the lifestyle you want to live. Do you want to live it when you're really, really, really young, or do you want to live it when you have a little bit more maturity? And she'll go into different types of debt now.
Well, the debt is typically the reason people can't save or invest the money that they need to invest is because we're in debt. And there's 2 different kinds of debt. You have revolving debt. That's the credit cards I mentioned. You got $17,000 at 18% interest. There's well over the 12%, right, that we mentioned that the banks and credit that do on credit cards. I've seen credit cards in 30% ratio. I mean, it's really sad how people end up in trouble. And they do because wages don't keep up with inflation. I mean, we've heard that word all the time this year. Right now, inflation's right at about 8.5%, even though the other day it said it was at nothing because it didn't go up from the month before, but it's still at 8.5%. In this example, revolving debt. So this is credit cards, things like that. $17,000 at an 18% rate, and this is working against you, as Edgar just mentioned. You're owing the money, so it works against you. You're paying $595 a month. It takes 17 years and 2 months to pay that off. And that $17,000 ends up adding $12,500 in interest that is pure profit to the banks and institutions, the financial institutions that we owe money to. Now, fixed debt, that would be your student loans, a car payment, because they figure that out, a home mortgage payment, those are all considered fixed debts. The amount that you're going to pay, the interest has already been calculated into it. $17,000 at the same 18%, same monthly payment, takes you 3 years and 2 months to pay it off. And you're only paying $5,300 in interest. So that, if you're able to change revolving debt into fixed debt. Now I'm going to talk more to the adults here, and that is if you own a mortgage on your home. I don't call it owning your home until the mortgage is paid for, but if you're paying for a mortgage on your home and there's equity in your home, you could refinance your credit card and car payment debt to put it into a fixed debt and eliminate the revolving debt and have it be a fixed debt. Now, debt stacking is a concept we work with everyone, and that is you take all the debts you owe, the credit cards, the car loans, the student loans, mortgage if that is also included. Tally them up. This example, they had 3 credit cards, a car loan, and a mortgage. They had $2,720 in debt payments each month. We stack them smallest to the highest, so that you can see success, because if you can see that there's some progress being made, you get more excited about sticking with a program. I know with weight loss, anything like that, you know, you go to the gym and you beef yourself up, you see that there's a muscle, you work more toward it even though it's painful. So the 220, pay all of them as you would, but as soon as the $220 credit card's paid off, then you add that to the second credit card. So now you're paying $573 a month toward it. It'll pay it off faster. And as soon as that one's paid off, you add it to the next, to the car loan. Now at $1,100 a month, is that car going to get paid off pretty quick? Yes, it will. So then we put the $1,427, which is the $1,124 plus the $303, toward the credit card. Now it's paid off that much faster. And then we're paying all $2,720 towards your mortgage. Now that's going to get paid off that much quicker. Now, what does that mean altogether? Well, had we not done the debt stacking, it would have been 23 years to pay off all those debts. And you would have paid $214,000 in interest. Still with the same $2,720 a month. But by applying debt stacking, no more money out of your pocket, the same $2,700 a month, we paid it off in 9 years, which is 14 years sooner. Now, why is that a big deal? Because that's 14 years sooner you can start applying that $2,700 toward your retirement program. You saved $130,000 in interest that you weren't paying to somebody else. Instead of paying $214,000, you're paying $83,000, call it $83,800 for the same money each month. So it's just reallocating how you're spending your money to have it work better for you. Now, common credit mistakes people make: one, they don't value their credit. If you're constantly or using the credit cards and they keep raising the limits and you keep using that credit, that's not valuing your credit, because having your credit cards at maximum actually reduces your credit score. Not monitoring your credit history. Now, this may not sound like something important to 15, 16, 17-year-olds. Go out, create an account on Credit Karma, and make sure somebody else isn't using your Social Security number to create credit history. We've had an 8-year-old went into the bank with his grandpa to open a bank account, and they refused him the bank account because somebody had used his Social Security number and racked up a bunch of credit cards, and so he had a negative credit score at 8 years old. So it's important to not only watch what's out there for the adults, that if you're looking at things on your credits, you're on your, not just the score, but on the actual credit report, and there's things you don't recognize as being your debt, People steal people's identity all the time, and they run up debt, medical bills. I had people opening accounts or attempting to open accounts using my information when we lived in California, and if they were successful and I wasn't watching it, that would damage my credit score, because they're not going to pay those bills. They're just going to run them up. And then it's important to know what you're paying. What, you put that on a credit card and you don't get it paid off this month, how much interest rate are they going to charge me? And what are the fees that are attached to it? If it doesn't get paid on time, there's a late charge. There's all that other stuff. Those are all things to be aware of and to monitor. I'm going to briefly talk about life insurance, because if there's anybody that is dependent on your income coming into the household, students, legally, no, students are not allowed to have credit. You're not supposed to be able to enter into a contract until you're 18 years old, but that doesn't prevent people, maybe not even people you know, from using your identification to open accounts in your name that aren't even yours. So it's more of a preventative thing than it is that you're actually creating credit on your own. You can't actually create your own credit until you're old enough, legal age of majority, which is 18, to be able to enter into a contract on your own. So at this point, you would just be monitoring to make sure nobody else is abusing your, as I would call it, your good name and your reputation. Because there's a lot of unscrupulous people in the world that would rather be deceptive and not do things above board, that we just need to be cautious and keep our name and our Social Security, our credit history clean and above board.
You don't want people to catfish your credit history. Just like you don't want them to catfish your identity, you don't want them to catfish your credit history. And it's done all the time, regardless to our age, from newborn babies to 90-year-old people get their credit information stolen and get all kind of things. And then you have to go through all kind of paperwork to get that straightened out, that you don't want to deal with. And yes, it does happen a lot to young people.
Young people and the elderly are the two most abused populations, but the young people are most vulnerable, because you've got a blank slate, a clean board there. Pretend it's a dry erase board that's not been written on yet. So people, if they can get the information, that's why it's so important. Then when somebody asks your Social Security number, you make sure who they are, and that when you say it, there's not people around you listening to it, because that is a gold mine for somebody that's unscrupulous, that wants to steal an identity. All they need is your birth date and your Social Security number, and they can go crazy with your history. So we just caution that you watch it. You can't do anything to create your own yet until you're 18, but you can monitor to make sure that it's not being damaged by someone else. So then, to talk about life insurance, we ask, how much is your car worth? Do you insure it? How much is your house worth? Do you insure it? Now, this question asks, how much is your life worth? Now, the term life insurance itself is a misnomer. It's not, because your car insurance, you can fix your car, you get in an accident, or you run into something. Your car can be fixed. They pay for what you've damaged, whether it be another car, fence, whatever. They'll repair it. Your house, if something happens in your house, it catches fire, they'll fix it. Well, unfortunately, if somebody passes away, we can't fix that. We can't make you be alive again. But your most important asset, and this is something that took me, I was 40 years old before I learned this stuff. Your most important asset in life is your ability to earn an income. Your income stream is your biggest asset. So if there's somebody that is dependent on your income, you contribute to the household, you're a spouse and has a household that's responsible for it, the income is what we're insuring. It's not your life, but at the point you pass away, this contract kicks into place. Now, term insurance is pure protection. It's like the homeowner's insurance, which is what they're calling fire insurance here, or auto insurance. Its sole function is to support your family if you're not there to do it anymore. You can buy a large amount of coverage for a small amount of money, and big policies are what your widow or your widower and your children need. Most financial experts will recommend that term life insurance is the most affordable for a small family. And then we talk about what my personal philosophy is. You never buy any kind of cash value or whole life insurance, including universal life. The new one that they're marketing is called indexed universal life. You never buy life insurance as an investment. You don't have an investment account attached to your auto insurance or your homeowner's insurance. And then there's a word that they use in the investment industry: dividends are good. In the life insurance industry, if the life insurance is paying a dividend, that is a refund of an overpayment of premium you already paid. They make it sound real good, but they charged you too much money and then they give it back and they call it a dividend.
But also, Pam, one of the reasons why you don't want to get cash value is you're bundling your investments in your life insurance or your income protection, but you only get one product. You only get the life insurance or the investment. You don't get both like people think. Once you pass on, you only get one or the other. And life insurance or income protection, just like investing, is best when you do it. The earlier you do it, the better off it is for you. If you perceive yourself ever wanting to get a house, ever having a family, it's better to start your life insurance as soon as you get of legal age, because the rates will never be that cheap again. And also, you are guaranteed to be insurable then. When you get 30 or 40, there's no guarantee that you're going to be insurable, especially you young men and young ladies that are on this call that are athletes, because you have all kind of ailments that may have been caused by your athletic career. Bad knees, bad hips, whatever, that may make you uninsurable. So you want to do that, just like investing, as early as possible in your life stream. So I will let Pam continue on that.
I would say one more thing about the life insurance or income protection, and it's not something you just buy. It's something you have to qualify for. So you'll never be younger or healthier than you are today. Now, some people can get a little healthier with diet and exercise, but in terms of things that are make you uninsurable, the earlier you are, the better. Okay.
And I'll give you an example on that. I don't know. COVID-19. 5 years ago, nobody thought that a disease that's a flu-like disease would be able to make people uninsurable. COVID came along, and all the life insurance companies said, "What? Wait a minute. We're not going to take people who had COVID as a pre-existing condition, and I won't give you life insurance." And it's hard for people who've had COVID before to get life insurance even today, even with the vaccine and everything else. So you never know what's going to come up, what's over the sunrise.
Yeah, most of the companies, on his COVID comment, most of the companies when they started doing COVID were no more insurance to be issued. The company I work with, we allow it if there's not been a positive COVID test in the last 90 days, which is rare, but there's a lot of things that are unique about mine. So now we're going to shift gears toward retirement, because retiring and investing sexy. The rest of the stuff we talked about, debt, life insurance, nobody wants to be in debt and nobody wants to have to talk about death. So this is the part that most people are intrigued by or interested in. For years, financial experts have used an analogy of a three-legged stool for people for their retirement income. Well, Social Security, maybe the young people haven't heard, but the adults that have been on here, they know that there's a date that they say that the full amount of the Social Security benefits that are listed on your Social Security statement, which are no longer mailed to you, you actually have to go to socialsecurity.gov to SSI.gov to be able to find your Social Security statement. But Social Security isn't so secure anymore. Actually, I call it social insecurity. The company pensions, unless you work for the government or a school district, a county, fire department, police department, most of the company are traditional brick and mortar companies don't offer a pension anymore. So everything is relying on personal savings. So our three-legged stool has now become a 1.5-legged stool. And we really need to look at where we're at, what we want our lifestyle to look like in the future, when we want to retire, and how we want that picture to look. The company I'm with, we offer a complimentary financial plan. You're able to put it all together and see where you're at with things. But when you're looking at retirement type accounts, there's a traditional IRA, and IRA simply stands for individual retirement account. And then there's a Roth IRA. Now they're handled differently when it comes to taxes. You can put up to $6,000 in a traditional IRA. Now a traditional IRA, if you're over age 50, you can put up to $7,000. It can be deductible on your income taxes. So if you're in a tax bracket that the tax deduction would help you, a traditional IRA may be beneficial. It's tax deferred, meaning you don't pay for the taxes till you start taking the money out of the account. And once you start taking the money out, it's now 72 for the tax distribution age, which they call required minimum distributions. But once you start taking them out, 100% of the money you take out of a traditional IRA is going to be taxable income. Now, you also have the option, depending on income, of a Roth IRA, a Roth individual retirement account. You can put the same amount of money in there, but it's taken out of your take-home pay. So you've already paid the taxes on it. The money in this account grows tax deferred. So the growth, the capital gains and all that come into this account, they're all tax deferred. But when you start taking it out, and you can start touching your retirement accounts at age 59 and a half without a penalty. If you touch them before then, the government gets a 10% penalty besides the taxes out of it. But when you start taking it out, it's tax-free. The growth and the money you already put in, because the money you already put in was tax after tax, was out of your take-home pay. But you have to have the account for at least 5 years, and everything that comes out, all the growth, is tax-free. Now, the beauty of that is, besides it being tax-free, you're not required to ever touch this money. So if you want to put aside money for an inheritance, for grandchildren, for whatever, you don't have to ever take money out of this account. Whereas in a traditional IRA, you have to start taking it out at 72. Now this one is hard to read, but this is my favorite slide of the whole thing. We've talked multiple times about the earlier you start, the better off you'll be. This example, I always ask, when is 48,000 equal more than 228,000? And it's when you start early. This example on the left, the person put $6,000 a month away, or a year away, from the age 22 to age 29. So they contributed a total of $48,000 into their retirement account. didn't touch it. Life got busy. We got married, had kids, whatever. Life got busy and they didn't put a dime in after age 29. Then they got their friend that started at age 30. They partied through their 20s. So now at age 30, we're going to get serious about life. And from 30 to 67, put $6,000 a year away. So they put a total of $228,000 in there. Now at retirement, the person on the left has $2.2 million in their retirement account from their $48,000 investment. The person on the right has just a little over $2 million. So by starting early, leaving it alone, not doing anything with it, they end up with 200,000, right about 200,000 more dollars in their retirement account. Now, the first time I presented this, one of the young men asked, what happens if I started at 22 and I didn't stop? Add the two columns together. You have $4.2 million for retirement. So a little bit of money over time. You don't have to make a whole lot of money to put, well, you need to make enough to not have debt to put $500 a month away. That'll give you your $6,000 a year. And you can end up with $4.2 million at retirement. So where do we put this money that gets these rates of return that we're talking about? Is in mutual funds. Now, a mutual fund is an account. It doesn't have to be retirement. It can be for anything you want to invest in. And you take your $25, $50, $100, $200, $500, however much money you want to put in there. Individual investors, they pool their assets so everybody's money goes into the same account. A professional money manager and their team figure out what's the best companies to invest in, which ones are providing value, which ones are growing right now in the global economy, which is the stock market. So you've got individual investors, they give their money to professional money managers, and they invest the money for us. A mutual fund will have anywhere from 100 to 150 different stocks, different companies inside it. So, and it depends on risk tolerance, which is a fancy word for how comfortable are you with the stock market doing what it does, going up and going down, which is how it's designed to work in the first place. So in this example, we have two investors. They're each investing $100 a month, and we're doing it over a 6-month period of time. Now, most people, I'm going to ask a little interactive question here. So you put in the chat, would you rather be investor A or investor B in this example? Now, investor A is working in a rising market. We all like the stock market to go up, right? Well, month one, investor A is buying at $10 a share, and somebody knows the answers to the question. So they're investing, the month one, they got $10 a share, month two. So you see each month as that investor A in the rising market is buying less and less shares. So at the end of the 6 months, they have 42 shares. Now, investor B, even though that market went down and back up, same amount of shares, they're buying more shares. So they end up with 125 shares, investor B does. Investor A ends up with 42 shares. The most important thing when you're accumulating money in your 401k, in any of your retirement or any investment account, as you're working toward accumulation, you want to look at the number of shares you've accumulated. The most important number for you is the number of shares accumulated. People deal with their money emotionally, and most of them look at what's it worth this month. Wait a minute, it was worth more last month or last quarter, the last statement I got. But what you want to be looking at is the 125 shares. See, if you look at it emotionally, Month 4, investor B was not happy if they looked at the balance on the account and not the shares. But in month 4, their shares were $2 each. They bought 50 shares that month. If you don't need this money for a decade or more, then you want to make sure that what you're looking at is the number of shares accumulated. Because if you take the $4.76 times the number of shares, because it ended up at $10 a share, it ended up the same place it started. But at 125 shares, that's $1,250. That's doubled their money. $42 a share at 20 shares, that's $840. They made money, but they didn't make as much as investor B. So as you're accumulating money in an investment account, you want to make sure that you're looking at the number of shares that you've accumulated, not the price the value of your account. Because I have clients that'll call me and say, I've lost money. The only time you lose money in any of these accounts is when you sell or you move it to a different account. So I want to move it to cash. I want to move it to a money market. I'm not comfortable with the market. As soon as you make that transaction, you've locked in your loss. Otherwise, it's a paper loss and it can be regained. So there's 3 things to look at, and they all start with the letter D, with things with investing. The first is dollar cost averaging, fancy name for systematically putting money in on a routine basis, whether it be a monthly, quarterly, but consistently investing. Discipline goes right along with it. When the market doesn't feel comfortable, continue to do it, because this is not an emotional game. It's math. Money is math. Math is science, and science is fact. Continue to do it whether we feel like it or not. It's like we go to practice, and the discipline of doing practice, it's whether you feel like it or not. And then diversification, you want to look at and have somebody help you with, do I have what am I investing in, what my risk tolerance is, how comfortable I am with the market doing what it does, and 2, do I have, to use an old adage, all my eggs in one basket, or am I spread across different industries, different classifications, different sizes of companies? Those are all the things that play into what investing, and to be able to be diversified. The path to financial independence starts with a few basic concepts. We covered those today. The implementation of those to win the financial war is the winning, and this is to win anything, is win the small battles on a day-to-day basis. So if you put together a simple plan and follow it, you'd be amazed at the progress you can make. Now, how do you put together a plan? You start with a budget or a spending plan. You've got your income, what's coming in, and what's going out, your expenses. Now, you also need to determine what are things that you want versus things that are needs. Food, shelter, clothing, or needs. Challenge for the students, go through your room, in the bathroom, and write down a list of everything that's in there and determine how much it costs. And then do wants versus needs, because there's a lot of cosmetic bathroom products that our children decided that were not needs when they found out how much money was being spent on them. Not necessarily from them, but looking at the whole picture. Now I don't know if this is on my presentation, but every time it shows blank. On the left-hand side here, I have a very simple budget worksheet for students. And then I have one that's more complicated for adults. more comprehensive. I won't call it complicated. It's more comprehensive. It covers more areas because we have more things that we're responsible for. If you want to shoot me an email, I'll be happy to send one, both, or either of them to you. Then to cover college, the FAFSA, which is financial aid for college, the free application for federal student aid will be available October 1st of this year for next school year. Whatever school year you're going to college, it's available October 1st of the prior year. So if you're going to go to school next year, starting in 23, it'll be available October 1st in 2023. You can get scholarships. They're either merit-based, they're based on sports, there's some that are based on being left-handed or being in a special group. There's a lot of them that are, your parents are in the military. They have ones that are, if somebody's in the Elks Lodge, Rotary, Kiwanis, different kinds of groups. And then they have ones based on financial income. So they're needs-based. You want to say something?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And they also have income-based ones are big. It's depending on which schools you want to go to. You want to go to Ivy League schools versus the regular state schools. They have a special thing like if you happen to get accepted to Harvard, if your parents make less than $125,000, your room and board and tuition is free. But you have to get into Harvard. And the same with Stanford. Some of the more prestigious schools do have income base that are different than the federal government standards of income base. So you need to check with the institution in which you're going about their specialized scholarships that are based on not only income based, but also special needs. Like they have special scholarships from certain areas, certain ethnic groups. If you're studying to become a certain type of occupation, if your parents are from a certain occupation, or you really want to research as heavy as possible with the institution. One Eastern school has a scholarship for left-handed, red-headed kids, and that's the only people that can get it. So needless to say, there's not a whole bunch of people to get it every year because somebody left a scholarship with money for left-handed, red-headed kids
At that school.
So but that's not something that's relatively advertised. And
So where do you find scholarships? Your high school counselor's your first step. They have ours. I'm going to date myself. Our kids had binders of stuff. They're probably all on a electronic. They probably send them out. If you ask, they would send out a list of what's available because they keep up with these things. The Department of Labor has a website that has all sorts of scholarships throughout the nation. As Edgar mentioned, anybody that where you want to go to school, or you're a legacy student for a specific school, check with the financial aid and the admissions office in that school. The library reference librarians are a wealth of knowledge when it comes to what's available locally. Foundations, religious community organizations, local businesses. Some of the local businesses are offering college scholarships. Or as I mentioned, civic groups, the Rotary, the Lions, those kind of things. Organizations, anything that's a professional organization related to your field of study. Anybody that's looking to go into business, accounting, CPAs, that kind of, STEM programs, all those kind of things are different. Organizations have scholarships specific to the field of study. There's ethnicity-based organizations. I know some of the kids had Portuguese Society, different things that had organizations. The NAACP has scholarships. And then always check with your employer if you're working, or your parents' employers. Sometimes my husband was in the transportation industry and the oil and gas industry, and they had a scholarship that two of our children applied for and were awarded. So look for them everywhere. Don't rule anything out.
Yeah, that's a big one, because a lot of your bigger employers, I know Walmart does, where the kids of Walmart employees can get scholarship, use their parents' educational funds. So you need to really, that's one of the hidden gems of the scholarship things. And even if you get a full-time scholarship, the more scholarships you have, the better off you are, because some scholarships are only 1 year and they're not renewable. Some are renewable. So you want to know that fact too. Which ones are going to be renewable? Which ones are just going to help you for that 1 year versus the continuing education?
Not everything's the same. Each one's different, but based on the organization. And as he mentioned, some are for all 4 years. Most of them are merit based. So you do well in the first year, send them your transcript. I was going to say report card, but I don't think they do such things anymore. Your transcript, and then they'll send you the money, or send you the contract for the next year. Some of them, the example he used last time was, we had a friend whose children went to college and got tennis scholarships. And the challenge was the parent had to pay the money up front, then they would be reimbursed. So one, they had to prove they were going to school and it would paid for, then the parent got reimbursed. Well, not everybody can afford that kind of scholarship, because we all know college tuition is not inexpensive. So know what the contract and the scholarship is before you sign to accept it. Some will send the money to the financial aid office at the school, and the school distributes it. Some will do it directly to the student. It all depends. Typically, they're non-taxable income if they're used for tuition and school-related expenses, which would be your books, your tuition, your supplies, if you're got any special equipment that you need. But they will not cover room, board, travel, you to go buy a car. They won't cover those kind of things. If you use them for that, then they become taxable income. So check before you do anything that is not specifically school related. Does anybody have any questions? If you don't think of them at this time and have something, the person doing the scholarship won't know if it's taxable income or not. The best bet there is to check with somebody who prepares taxes, because the last thing, if it is taxable, then you want to know that up front so you can put aside money for taxes. But somebody that prepares taxes would be able to tell you.
The school
and the financial aid office at the school should be able to tell you.
They'll be able to tell you if it's taxable or non-taxable, and exactly before you sign. You want to find out how they're going to get the money. Are they going to give it to you personally, or are they going to go to financial aid? And your financial aid department at the school should be able to tell you. And if not, the organization that's giving out the scholarship will definitely be able to tell you, because they have to state that for their tax purposes.
Correct.
So they'll be able to tell you. It's just that it's not a question that many people ask about scholarship. They're so happy, they're so enthusiastic about getting a scholarship,
right,
that they don't, So, any more questions? And if you have a question that you don't want to discuss in the wide, wide world, please email us, call us. We'll be happy to answer your questions. But me personally, Coach Callie, thanks for having us on. I can't emphasize enough that whatever you do in life, know your lifestyle. Know what kind of life you want to live, what kind of what you want to think about, what your goals you want to achieve, and just don't think about tomorrow. Think about 5, 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line. Plan on living. Most people plan on dying, not living. Plan on living a long, fruitful life, and how you're going to enjoy that long, fruitful life.
Well, it looks like now, and of course, I'd like to say thank you, Miss Pam, Mr. Edgar. Always a pleasure. Knocking you guys and educating not only the youth but community on finances. I get a lot of questions now. Your first class, so so it's definitely always this. As you know, we're going to continue to go with this, starting with the young people. You know, once we get to the young people, parents will start to ask questions. We're very bad. I was very bad. On saving money. So I've definitely learned a lot from you guys.
Most of us weren't taught, and we can't do what we don't know.
Exactly.
It's something that used to be passed down from parent to parent, when we had the multi-generational families, but now we don't have multi-generational families. So the wisdom and knowledge that our grandparents and great-grandparents knew passed down, but now we don't have that situation in a lot of places that we have. So unfortunately, it's not something that school can teach you or anybody else can. That's some of the secrets that are kept for the people with influence and wealth.
Well, we just taught them everything the wealthy people learned about money.
Right.
All right. Well, questions. And thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Always, you know, we'll continue connecting a lot more. So, without further ado, thank you guys again, and everybody. Let's have a nice day.
You too. Have a blessed day.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.